Hi, welcome to the Lighthouse of Awesome. I'm Michael, and today I'm talking about the cardinality of the tarot. I found this really interesting. I got back into tarot recently. I've studied it for quite a number of years since college, and I was interesting as I was recompiling like charts on how to think about the tarot, how the cards relate to each other, and how things connect. I got interested in the cardinality of the cards themselves. So, cardinality meaning whether something is mutable or changing, fixed, or cardinal or beginning. So, each season has 3 months, so give or take, and they all start with a cardinal sign, then they move to a fixed sign, and then they finish with a mutable sign. So, you have a life cycle, like a sub life cycle of the year, where you have the beginning of something and the end of something. So, and I noticed that the months that related to the face cards in the minor arcana, the knight, the queen, and the king, related to the first month of the signs for mutable for the knight, the cardinal for the queen, and the fixed for the king. I found that really interesting and intriguing, so I've been playing with that a bit and comparing and contrasting how the signs relate to the cards, how the months relate to the cards, and how everything kind of runs together. So with the four suits and through the three cards from each suit, you get a 12-month cycle. And so you have the king for January, April, July, and October, which would be Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio, and Leo, because I always forget the summer months for some reason. And likewise for the other suits. And I find that really intriguing. And I was like, how does this cardinality relate to the rest of the deck, and how do things connect? And so I started looking at the other minor arcana, and I was looking at, saying what sign connects to what numbers in the deck, and I started with wands, and 2, 3, 4 are Aries, and 5, 6, 7 are Leo, and 8, 9, 10 are Sagittarius. So again, you can see that that cardinal fixed mutable split again, where we're starting with the cardinal sign and moving through all the way to the mutable sign. And it's like that for every suit in relevance to element. So the cups would be start with Cancer, then go to whatever comes after Cancer, which is Scorpio, and then Pisces. So we have this consistent building of cardinality, fixed and mutable. We see it on the Gregorian calendar in the face cards, and we see it in the number cards explicitly, where they since they're split into threes, they actually represent the decans in order. So decan 1, 2, 3, and a decan is just a third of a sign. So the whole astrological wheel is split up into 360 degrees because there's about 360 days in a year, and it's easy to round. It's a weird fact. And so every sign gets 30 degrees. There's 12 signs. We peg that to the seasons on the sun sign, on the sun signs, and that's how we get that. So if the sun is in the first decan of Aries, it just became spring. It's late March. obviously all the planets travel through the signs, and the planetary aspects don't necessarily give the year or the time of year, and that's how it connects. So we have this relation between the 8, 9, 10 and the knight, the 2, 3, or 4 and the queen, and the 5, 6, 7 and the king. For the jack or the jack and the ace, jack is the personification of the element, and the ace is the power of the element. And so I was kind of thinking about, like, how do these relate to the major arcana? Because the major arcana are represented by mainly by the 12 signs and then by the 10 planets. And there's some, once we get to Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune, those are actually treated as the personification of air, water for Neptune, and fire for Pluto. So those were just kind of tagged on later after they found it. Excuse me while I take a drink. Got my Aramar cup. Keep reusing things. Good for the environment, I guess. So I started breaking up based on, so the ones that are the major arcana that were marked out in signs were pretty easy, and then I kind of was like, hey, if I've got an element and a planet that match and would represent the sign, I'm just going to take that and see what the cardinality of that is and how we connect that overall. So, and so it was interesting. So I split up into a magician column, a high priestess column, and a fool column. So the magicianess would be mutable with the knight. The high priestess would be cardinal, corresponding to the queen, and the fool would be fixed, corresponding to the king. And what was interesting about that is after I had done all that work, I was watching some YouTube videos and checking out what was going on, and I heard that those 3 cards are really the 3 characters of the entire tarot, and everything else is just a growth out of that, all the other, which is kind of an interesting concept, because I was still playing on, like, do I call these cardinal, do I call these fixed, or do I call them falling into these categories overall? And so I took all that, I made a little chart, and kind of, it's interesting when you're going through cards and you're saying, like, all right, how does this relate to this? Because I often draw connections that I didn't think were there. For instance, a surprise to me was the Empress ended up under the Magician, being mutable, which I expected cardinal as I was looking at it. And I think looking at the cards like this really broadens our understanding of the cards and how to connect more with what they mean to us on a deeper level. And you start to make connections in your head that you weren't expecting, but once you make them, they just seem quite obvious, which is really interesting, and I think that helps us associate things in daily life and really build upon that. So I made a little blog post on my website. If you want to check that out, that would be awesome. And definitely I'd like to hear your comments, and if you have any ideas on how you treat different cards as mutable, cardinal, or fixed for the tarot.